The next item on tonight's agenda. Thank you. The next item on tonight's agenda is a special permit application for the conversion of a single-family dwelling submitted by Robert J. and Mamie D. Romano for property known as 196 Orchard Road. The proposal is to construct an addition to an existing single-family dwelling to create a 900-square-foot apartment to accommodate the elderly. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hello, my name is Bill Ledutko. Company is WLP LLC. We're general contractors. I'm here to assist the Romanos in the special permit application for the conversion of a single-family dwelling. The dwelling is Mr. Romano, Robert Romano's main residence, and the purpose of this is, as the application says, to construct an accessory apartment, and Mr. and Mrs., that's Robert and Mame Romano, will remain in the main section of the house, and their son, Mark Romano, plans on occupying the proposed one-bedroom apartment addition. Everything appears to meet all regulations for the special permit, and if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
I have a few questions. Forgive me, but I feel that the plan submitted to us is not really up to the standards that we require. There's no demonstration of for instance, our requirements that we have a single front door, that the existing front door to be used to access, and from looking at these plans, I don't even see which door is going to be used, where the front door is to the buildings.
No, correct me if I'm wrong, but the requirement says that all means of ingress and egress from the front of the structure.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that the apartment...
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, from looking at that plan, or this plan, I don't know where either of them are.
The proposed, the front of the house is as shown.
Okay.
Nothing's being changed to the front of the house. We're utilizing the existing structure of the house. The proposed addition...
Is all to the rear here, and this is...
This is not the proposed addition. This is the setback.
The setback line, I'm saying.
The proposed addition is just this small area of where the brick patio...
Okay, where the brick patio currently is.
This plan picks up, if we look at the plan, the main house, this is facing Orchard Road, the main house.
Main house.
So we would...
So orient this
correctly. Okay, I'm sorry. To orient this correctly, the front of the house is facing Orchard Road, and this would be as existing. There is no... Correct.
So this is this jog right here, this right here, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All this is pre-existing as the plan shows. This exists, this is the existing family room.
Right.
The scope of the addition itself is here, but your scope entails this whole area because we're utilizing part of the existing structure.
And where is the kitchen facilities going to be used in the new section?
As shown on the plan.
Okay, and this is the main house over here, so that's... Correct. Okay. And what's the total square footage going to be, the finished total square footage of the building?
We have limited it to 900 square feet as required under your regulations. That's including utilizing the existing area.
I guess my question is that
the
the existing lot coverage you have it listed on the plan is 2674.
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood the question.
When you say existing lot coverage, is that
sorry.
prior to the addition or after the addition? This listing here.
No, existing lot coverage is as it exists right now.
As exists. So if you add 900 square feet to that, you are exceeding our allowable 10%.
No, the 900 square feet is utilizing
a portion of the existing home?
Is utilizing approximately half of what's there.
What's there. So the total square footage
Added on,
included with the total square footage after the project is completed is going to be what?
It would entail approximately 350 square feet additional.
350.
Which which would be this area here. Actually, we could scale this out. It would be this area here. Where the brick patio is shown on the A2 survey, that is the scope of the addition.
What do we need to know is that what the total square footage is after the addition is in, because you're really, if you're saying there's going to be 3,350 additional square feet, that puts you up to 3024. This lot is 30,098, so you're allowed 3,009
Correct.
square feet. So you would be slightly in excess. So we need to get that cleared up to know exactly where we are in that, because we're right on the edge of what's allowed. I mean, you're talking right on the edge, it's a small amount, but we just need to have clarity with the application.
I
to see
see
that
that.
it's
Correct. I
within
see
our
what
rem-
you- I see
within
what
our-
you're saying. Well, we can scale that off at this point in time and get an exact determination, or we can limit the amount to what is required.
Okay.
It's not a deal breaker because,
It's a minor amount, you're talking
correct.
15 square feet, you know.
Mr. Luzatko, can you, I know it's difficult on the plan, but which part of the present house is being used, integrated into the new addition?
Which part?
Yeah.
On your plan, you said proposed addition. All that square footage there, do you know what that comes out to?
If we look at the area,
Looking at the site, you know what, I did the same thing. I looked at the setback lines as being the addition.
no,
That's not what,
Area hashed
brick,
in.
just where it says brick patio.
With the brick patio.
Correct.
That's
Just
the
on-
addition.
That's
Just-
the addition?
That's the
Yes.
addition.
that's it. Well, utilize,
Yeah, it looked like I said.
I did too until I realized it went way outside the rest of the house, but I mean, still, I looked at the numbers on here which says existing lot coverage.
well, see, in 1976, a building permit was taken out, permit number 5471, for the construction of the existing family room and an additional garage. So as the house exists right now, off the back of the house is an existing family room, which is 3/4 finished. It was never finished, but it exists. It is, in addition to that, there is a furnace room as shown on the plan and a bathroom as shown on the plan. What we would like to do is utilize that space that is already there and just add additional space, which is shown where the brick patio is. There is, as far as the wetland issue goes, Scott Allen has determined that there was no increase in area of disturbed area.
I'm just looking where the brick patio is on, to try to lay this onto the site plan. Do you know where could you?
What he wants to do is, maybe you could do it up on the board there, but where is the brick patio, where this, show us on here where the brick patio would be. Is it all this area here? You could even shade it in, just shade it in on this map where the existing brick patio is.
The existing brick patio,
Yeah.
you can see the jog right here. That
Okay.
jog represents, this jog represents this jog right here.
Okay, so this is going to be built here,
Correct,
all the way across, and this as well, right?
correct. The existing family room wall is this straight wall right here.
Okay, and where is that wall on this?
That wall is represented by this wall right here, this straight.
Okay. The existing wall, Rick, for everybody, is, let's put it up on here. The existing wall is this wall right here,
Yes,
okay? Yeah. Then, the part being built or proposed is, this is that existing wall,
correct.
this is the portion that's going to be built.
No, this is the part that exists.
This is part of,
This is the front of the, this is Orchard Road here,
how come all this is existing is existing?
this way. This wall exists. This
Okay.
is existing.
So this is the new?
No,
No.
I
No.
apologize.
you're
I
right, yeah.
apologize. I'm looking at
This
this.
is existing.
Correct.
This is the part that's going to be built.
Correct. You're right, yes, correct. Correct.
So I said the plans are a little,
It's,
Show me again the, where's the common wall?
common wall, waiting,
Right above where it says brick patio,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And on this floor plan, the common wall is where?
right here. Right there.
Okay.
And the space is a brick patio.
Yeah, that's,
Is this the brick patio?
The brick patio is under,
The brick patio will not exist
Yeah.
once we build the,
Area, it takes the whole thing. Over here, right? That's the brick patio.
yes, correct.
Brick patio's the whole thing. Yeah.
But the issue here then, though, is, I mean, what is the issue exactly? We are within the setbacks. Is the question only the lot coverage issue?
well, we have the lot coverage issue that just has to be addressed. I'll put it
Correct.
That way.
There is no change to the front of the house.
You know, this proposed addition part is what's confusing everybody because, you're entering this into you look at it and that part of it isn't part of the house. So it's just this L, and that's why there's that little jog. That little jog in the brick patio portion is this jog right here. That's obviously an entry door,
Correct.
and then it comes squared back to the closets. It's, the difference in scale makes it quite
So
confusing.
the garage is new, right? The one-car garage, 21 by 16,
Correct.
right?
Yes,
Okay. The bedroom's new, 14 by 12,
correct.
Correct.
and the office den, 13.6 by 11 is new,
Correct.
And the closets.
and all the closets, right?
Now,
Correct.
Paul, don't we require separate cooking facilities? In our,
Showing that.
because they're gonna be in the existing portion is gonna be part of the elderly apartment, is that correct?
Correct, but that's a proposed new kitchen. That kitchen does not exist at this time.
But the building is there, the kitchen is gonna be new, but the
Correct.
room
The
is
spa-
there.
Correct. The space is there currently, but the kitchen is not.
The in-law apartment works both ways?
Either one, yes.
Doesn't
Either-
matter which way it goes?
No.
The kitchen is going to be immediately adjacent to the garage?
No.
Isn't it going to be,
The common wall between the common wall is a garage wall, as it exists now.
The common walls,
Between-
now you've got me confused again.
Well, where the proposed kitchen is currently a family room.
Existing family room.
Existing family
Which is
room.
right here, correct? Existing family room is right here.
Correct.
Okay. And here's the kitchen, right here, correct?
Correct.
And the common wall is the wall just to the side of the garage.
Also one in the kitchen, too.
So
Okay,
the
yes.
existing two-car garage, front-loading garage, will remain the use of the primary resident, Mr. Robert and Mame Romano.
Okay,
They will access their main living quarters through the section between the main house and the garage.
okay,
That wall is going to be the separation wall between the apartment and the main house.
not the garage wall, though.
No,
Yeah,
no,
okay,
the
'cause that's not
proposed
allowed.
separation
Right,
wall.
Right, okay,
Right now, that wall does not exist. That family room is wide open.
okay. So this is gonna be some kind of an additional room there, a den or
That would
something?
be, that would be the storage room for, currently, the family room is used as storage.
Okay.
And that space between the front of the house and the proposed separation wall will remain the use of the primary resident.
Okay,
And whether they use it for storage or whatever they use it for, that's
yeah.
up to them. But,
Can you
point-
show us, please, on this, where the entry to the new apartment will be?
if we refer today...
Put it up on the wall, please.
Okay.
Okay.
the entry will be on the side.
Got it, okay.
If we refer to the A2 survey, you will see a proposed drive coming to a side-loaded garage, and the entryway will be to the side of that. They can either come in through the garage or through the side. Well, currently, right now, there is an entry on the back of the house. So basically, we're going to be just shifting it a little bit, but utilizing the same general area.
I'm not sure how the rest of the commission feels about it, but, perhaps we should get a plan with some more clarity. This has got to be part of the record, and I can just imagine somebody going to search the town records and trying to decipher what this,
Well, quick, how about the septic system? Is that underneath this new driveway? Do you know?
No, the septic plan has been approved, the proposed septic plan has been approved by the town sanitarian. He has signed off. The sign-off sheet should be as part of your records.
No, just, Mr. Lozecco, I think the question was, where is it on the,
Well, according to the soil test that currently, to answer your question, currently it's in the back of the house. It will not remain there. The new system will be installed in the front of the house. The testing has been completed, and preliminary approvals have been issued by the town sanitarian. The current septic system is in the vicinity of the current brick patio and wraps around the back of the house.
Is there a kitchen, is it required that there be a kitchen dedicated
yes.
to the?
If there was not a kitchen dedicated, it would not require this application. By putting in a second kitchen, it qualifies an apartment, and that's why this application is before you. If there was no kitchen involved, it would just be a standard addition, and that would not require your approval.
But isn't that what's, I agree with Bo, I can't really, every time I look at this, I see it a little differently, but it doesn't look like there's a kitchen.
That's because
The kitchen that's going to be dedicated, if there is a kitchen dedicated to this additional dwelling, it is not in space that's part of the addition. It's in existing space. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not really separate from the existing dwelling. Is it?
What they're proposing is a proposed separation wall.
Yeah, right.
So that's going to be the wall that
right after the
separates
refrigerator?
the main home from the apartment.
So then when, one of the requirements here is that the, each dwelling unit created shall contain not more than 900 square feet of floor area. So when you take the proposed addition floor area, which appears to be, I didn't scale it out exactly, but it could be close to 900 square feet.
They're claiming it is 900 square feet.
Okay, and then you add the kitchen to it,
No.
You're not adding the
that's-
kitchen,
You don't add
because
the
that's in
kitchen.
the existing building.
That's in the,
No,
yeah.
the
but you're
apartment,
dedicating it to,
Right, but the new area is only 900,
No.
under the regulation.
Oh,
when we say
you see what I'm saying?
Ozzy's point is that the part that's being dedicated for a secondary apartment exceeds the 900 square feet because the addition itself
no, that's not correct.
is 900 square feet.
No, it's not, that's not correct. The proposed apartment, the proposal is to construct an apartment. Part of the apartment is new, part is existing. But the total created apartment, not built, we're not talking new construction, we're talking the total created apartment. The apartment is being created by a proposed separation wall of existing space. If you take the whole square footage, old and new, for that's dedicated to the apartment, it is 900 square feet. The new construction is only 300 and something square feet.
All right, that's fine, if that's the case, you can't see that off of anything I'm looking at.
Could we get like a new
It's
plan
very
with
clear, it
the-
says total floor area, 900
Well,
square feet.
I beg to
Doesn't
differ,
sh-
it's not clear, and we just discussed that, because you mentioned before that the existing lot coverage is 2674, and you said you were adding the 900 to it. No, 350, you're right, you said
Correct.
350. Your addition is 350.
But if we got a new plan, like say, shade one blue for the new apartment, and the other section's gonna be the old.
Well,
and
it's-
with the square footage in each room.
Yeah, I
It's
think.
very, it's
I
very
think-
clear here.
I
It says a
think we-
proposed apartment conversion and addition, total floor area equals 900 square feet. That is very clear as far, this plan is
I know,
sufficient to
I-
obtain a building permit.
No, I know that statement is clear, but the dimensions aren't shown on the site plan. In other words, it says scale equals, 1 inch equals 20 feet. If I scaled out length times width here on this proposed addition, it appears to me to be about, I don't know, 30 by 30 almost, or maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe 30 by 30, 900 square feet for the proposed addition.
Yeah.
And now, when I add in the part that's existing, that's the kitchen that you're going to close off and make a part of the new dwelling unit, now I may have more than 900 feet. I can't tell that.
I think
from this.
what the commission would like to have here, and correct me if I'm wrong, we'd like to see a site plan including the floor plan of the existing home with the addition, and then have the proposed area for the elderly apartment shaded in some fashion that we can easily decipher the two.
Okay, so if, granted that that's an issue, are there any other issues before you? So that when next time we come
Okay.
before you, we can wrap
The
this
only
up?
other issue before us now is the fact that you were slightly over the limit. Now, other issues, well, no, I'm saying they were slightly over the limit for the allowable square footage as well, not the 900. This home, by his calculations, would be, total would be 3,024, they're allowed 3,009. So they're slightly over the 10% allowed. Excuse me? Yeah, so
You're talking about the coverage, the
Correct.
percent
correct.
coverage.
Yes. They're slightly above that. This information on the plan is incorrect, which says allowable lot coverage is 15%. That's the old standard that we adjusted, several months ago.
Is
It's now
that,
10%.
when did that go into effect? 3 months ago?
Yeah.
And what's the date of that survey? 'Cause that was Bob Heiser.
6107.
So the survey's not accurate.
Correct.
Thank you.
I just
So they
want-
may have to shave 15 square
15 feet, 15 square
from
feet,
the,
it's-
coverage.
Right.
From the
Which is,
addition.
from the addition, yeah. Which is, but I think we're all having trouble deciphering this, and I think that we should have a floor plan, a plan showing the floor plan of the entire house, and then have either the main house or the addition shaded so that we can easily see what part is being added on, what part is existing, or what part will be the apartment, I guess I should say.
Including the dimensions.
Correct.
Including the dimensions, so we don't need to scale it out ourselves.
Right.
Okay, other than that, are there any other issues that we can address at this time so that when we come before you, we don't waste your
The
time?
garage is going to be a different elevation than the floor, right? Your garage is going to be,
The garage will be, by code, will be stepped down.
right, that's what I'm asking, right, okay.
You know,
No,
a
right,
couple
yeah.
inches.
I
I
just
mean,
want to make sure.
the code has changed. You really don't have to step it down as long as you pitch it, but for argument's sake, it will be
Right.
stepped down.
Okay.
Okay. Do any of the other commissioners have any additional questions that the applicant needs to be answered at this time? Okay, so you understand what we're looking for when you come back?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I guess we'll continue this at our next public hearing, which is, our next meeting is August the 7th?
Okay, thank you.
Next item on tonight's agenda is a petition to amend the Orange zoning regulations. I'll ask the applicant, are all these 4 items going to be heard at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Your name, sir?
Good evening, my name is Joe Porto.
We have a petition to amend the Orange zoning regulations, a special permit application submitted by Sunrise Hill Estates to create an active adult community, an application for temporary special earth materials removal and filling, and a re-subdivision application. Just to point out to the commission that although we're hearing these at the same time, they are 4 separate issues and they have to be dealt with at separate levels.
May we?
Please proceed.
Excellent. Good evening, once again, my name is Joe Porto. I'm an attorney. I practice law with the law firm of Perrette, Porto, Parisi, and Caldwell, and we maintain offices in Hamden. I am before you this evening regarding our representation of the Anderson Wilcox Corporation, who is the applicant for the several applications that are before you. I'd like to begin by thanking each of you for your time in considering the several applications that we have submitted. However, I believe that once all of our experts have had the opportunity to speak to you about this project, you will agree that this is a very exciting concept in a use that will greatly benefit the town of Orange. As the Commission knows, the subject parcel is generally located at the corner of Route 34 and Grassy Hill Road. The approximately 51-acre site was initially purchased from the Hine family by Sunrise Hill Estates several years ago. In fact, the initial design concept was to create a relatively high-end subdivision, which is permitted by right. The applicant obtained approval for approximately 21 lots and expected several more lots to come online after additional testing was done for septic. As the permitting phase ended and construction began, the applicant began receiving several calls and letters from residents of the town of Orange asking that consideration be given to developing an age-restricted active adult community on this site. The applicant met at length with staff, and a decision was made to convert the subdivision plan into the development that you will hear about this evening. The permitting process for the active adult community that we are going to present to you this evening began by submitting an application before the Orange Water Pollution Control Authority. Because the development of the active adult community is more intense, it's more dense, the subdivision is more dense than the subdivision, the site had to be serviced by both city water and sewer. The hearing before the Orange WPCA was well attended. Several people offered comments and opinions, some pro, some con. In the end, the WPCA voted in favor of extending the sewer lines to serve this site. Once the approval from WPCA was in hand, the applicant set about obtaining the permits necessary to run the sewer lines. This involved filing applications before both the Orange Inland Wetland Commission as well as the Derby Inland Wetland Commission. The reason that we had to appear before the Derby Wetland Commission is that the sewer line that is going to service this site stubs on the Hine Farm, which is across Route 34 in Derby. In order to bring the sewer line to Orange, a very modest amount of work needed to be done in the upland review area. The Derby Wetland Commission voted unanimously in favor of the application. And I should also note that Town Council, Mr. Marino, is presiding over an intermunicipal agreement between Orange and Derby that protects Orange in the event that Derby has to have a sewer upgrade. And we could certainly explain that in greater detail to the extent the Commission is interested. Just as in Derby, we submitted an application before the Orange Inland Wetland Commission regarding a very similar modest amount of work that needed to be done in the upland review area to extend the sewer line under Route 34 up to the site. We also obtained an approval from the Orange Wetland Commission regarding that application, and then more recently appeared before the Orange Wetland Commission again in order to extend the detention basin, enlarge the detention basin that is currently on site. Now that essentially explains how it is that we have come to appear before you tonight. It's the factual background or predicate, if you will. Now, as your agenda reflects, we have submitted several applications and taking each in turn. The first is our petition to amend the zoning regulations to allow for an age-restricted housing in the residential RES district. Now, we have again several experts in Mr. Gordon will certainly present additional evidence and testimony on this specific issue, but I just wanted to hit some of the high points. Our regulations propose that the development be restricted to 55 and older. That is to say, at least one resident needs to be 55 years of age or older. If that individual has a spouse that's under 55, the spouse gets to come. God forbid, if one of them should pass away, and the remaining spouse is under age 55, they also get to stay. There is no...
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Of course.
What happens in the event of a divorce?
Well,
Just, just a question that came up.
if one of our residents, if the project were approved, if one of our residents purchase a unit and then they divorce.
Yes.
Well-
And then there happened to be a younger spouse who got the house.
Yeah, well, I think that would be a
I mean,
qualifying
the
event.
death is one thing that's understandable, but
Right.
I think it should be addressed in the regulation.
I
I'll say
think
that now.
I think it probably should, and I'm not certain that it has been, but it certainly can be. Good point. And I was mentioning that no residents under the age of 18 are permitted on a full-time basis. Of course, people can kind of stop by and visit. And we also have a provision that in the case of an emergency, there can be a meeting of the association and a decision could be made by the association to allow someone under the age of 18 to be within the development in order to accommodate a temporary emergency situation. Another high point, of course, is the connection to the city sewer and water. Beautiful landscaped proposals, as well as significant landscape buffers. And of course, the infrastructure is going to be privately maintained. That is to say, costs to the town are minimal, but gains are substantial. The association will be responsible for rubbish, snow, ice, will not be relying on the town for any of those services. Now, we received comments from Brian Miller, and they're generally favorable. But Mr. Miller poses a threshold question to this commission, and I endorse the question. The question is, does this commission believe that the development of an age-restricted active adult community is beneficial to the town of Orange? That's the threshold question. If we answer that question in the affirmative, and I'm confident that we're going to present to you sufficient evidence to make you reach that conclusion, then the whole project continues. The next application is for the special permit, is a special permit application, goes into a little more detail regarding our proposal to develop 142 units. Once again, comments received from Mr. Miller are favorable and will all be addressed by our experts. The next application is the site plan application, which further defines the size of the parcel, as well as proposed traffic flows. We have our traffic engineer with us this evening, who's going to talk to you about trip counts associated with this type of use, how that compares to subdivisions. Also, we'll go into, Mr. Gordon will go into our landscaping plan and the considerable amount of open space that has been reserved. We have an application for what I refer to as cuts and fills. I believe you call it temporary earthworks. Also an application for soil erosion and sedimentation control. Project engineers will talk to you about the phasing, the construction phasing. This is a substantial project. This is not going to get built all at one time, and it's going to take some time to build out. We will explain to you how it is we propose to do that, the manner in which we are going to handle the material on site, and how we are going to make sure that it doesn't become problematic for anybody in town or any of our neighbors. Last is our re-subdivision application, which was filed in large part due to the changeover from the permitted subdivision to this active adult community. We had to abandon roads and change some others. You're going to hear a little bit more about that from Mr. Gordon. Essentially, we had a 21-lot subdivision, and we now are proposing a 7-lot subdivision along with one large, what we refer to as out parcel. That, of course, involves the development of our active adult community. The 7 single-family homes remain along Skyview Road, and in fact, Skyview Road remains a cul-de-sac, but we've extended it somewhat, and we've also, at the request of fire and police, created an emergency access. That is not a general means of ingress or egress, but reserved for emergency personnel. With me this evening is Jeff Gordon and Robert Weway of Codispodian Associates. They are our project engineers, land surveyors. We have David Spear of DLS Consulting, who is our traffic engineer. Joe Bergen, project architect. Doug Anderson, who is the client. I know there's some people from the town that have come. I don't want to take too much more of your time. We have a lot of evidence to put on. I have not touched on one issue that may likely come up and will likely be touched on by some of our experts, and that is our commitment to having some of these units be set at a less than market price. I want to make clear, at this moment, we are not proposing a affordable housing concept. Affordable housing, as I'm sure you all know, has federal legislation and certain requirements. That is not what we are proposing. What we are proposing, assuming that we have an approval, is to set aside a certain number of units that will be set at a below market price, that will be restricted so that they cannot be sold at a profit. As each year goes by, the owner of that unit could sell that property, but only at a 5% increase above what they bought it for. So that is to say, someone could not come in year one, buy a unit at less than market price, and in year two turn around and sell it for, pick a number, a $50,000, $60,000 profit.
Is that going to be a lottery? I mean,
Well, that is a good question, and we are not able to do that because of, we cannot discriminate in terms of how we are going to whom we are going to sell these. So it is not going to be on a lottery basis, and we are not going to be able to require that people meet certain income thresholds, because that would also run afoul of how we are proposing to offer these units. They're essentially going to be available to those that want to purchase them. And our sincere hope is that they're going to go to people from the town of Orange. But we are not going to be able to establish any type of preferential list, and we are not going to be able to predicate it on earning or assets,
First come, first served.
essentially.
And one question too, with the established price of the, I'll call them affordable units, that price is not going to be established using the state and federal guidelines for affordable units, is that correct?
That is correct. It is not.
It's not going to be established under those guidelines, okay. One thing while I'm speaking, I know that you read Mr. Miller's comments, and you said that he had a favorable report on them. I kind of don't like to use that term. I don't think Mr. Miller expressed his opinion one way or the other, but rather gave a factual analysis of the proposal being done. I don't think he expressed his opinion whether he was in favor of it or not in favor of it. Just to be clear.
Depends who reads them. But, no, I tried to point out, and what I did say is, again, I have 4 pages of writing there, is it's really, as you pointed out, it's a very much of a threshold decision. If the commission decides that this type of development's appropriate, then I had recommendations for the regulations that I thought would enhance it, on the thought that what generally happens, even though this is rather narrowly defined, somebody else is going to pick it up and put it back right on, for another proposal. So, yes, it's an interesting concept, but it is ultimately the decision of this commission on a policy basis.
Agreed. Agreed. And I didn't mean to presume. It maybe it's just my spin. Yeah, my optimism. We'll go with that. So, With your permission, I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Gordon so we can get right into our presentation.
Real quick, Mr. Porto, you referenced the market price. Have you determined the market price?
Specifically, we have not set it. We are aiming at below 300,000 if you were referring to those units that we were just discussing. Relative to price points for all the other several units, no, that's not yet been set.
Right, so the ones that you feel will be below market price will be less than 300,000?
At this point, that is correct. Thank you. And we'll, of course, be here to respond to any questions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Jeff Gordon. I'm principal with Codaspodi and Associates. I'm a landscape architect and a planner licensed here in the state of Connecticut. And I am representing the applicant here on this proposal for Fieldstone Village. As was mentioned, we have a series of applications that we're going to roll one right into the other, so my comments will try to touch on various aspects of it and try to be fluid at the same time. The re-subdivision, as was mentioned, is required because we are abandoning Sunrise Hill Drive as a public road, Goose Lane, Deerfield Lane. Those were all approved as part of your original subdivision approval for the Sunrise Hill development. And also, there was a right-of-way at one time which was intended to connect through, even before our subdivision application, out to Pleasant Hill Road. So what happens here is with road abandonment, changes in the road system, more than de minimis adjustment in lot lines, which affect the developability of these remaining building lots, this inherently requires a re-subdivision application. The change also creates a cul-de-sac that when we extend down, I'll turn this way, when we take Skyview Road and extend it down, now we have a cul-de-sac without an intervening intersection that now is approximately 1,700 feet long. This, with the approval of the Fire Department and Police Department, which have both reviewed, we went to the Police Commission, we met a number of times with Chief Sherwood and with Tim Smith. With their sign-off, the commission, under the regulations, can allow this extension. The key that they required, and they actually made us enhance it, is where there was once going to be a driveway to a building lot on the original subdivision, and you can see that right over here, there was a driveway to lot 21. That now becomes the fire lane access that goes into this network of roads and out. So that provides emergency access out that way, and it also brings it back the other way. Our initial plan was, I believe, a 12-foot wide pavement with 3 feet of shoulder area. That has been enhanced to 16 feet at the request of both the fire and police without any gate. But in our plan, what we're doing is we're extensively landscaping on both sides of that, so it really does not have any appearance to the subdivision of anything more than the driveway that would have served the building lot in the original subdivision. So their perception is no different. It allows water service to be looped through, and it provides the outlet from the cul-de-sac that the fire department and police department would require.
Jeff, if I can interrupt you for just a minute. Within the next 20 minutes or so, we'd like to take a brief recess for the commission, so at an appropriate time in your presentation, can you make room for that?
Oh, I hope I'm done within 20 minutes.
Okay.
I'll talk.
Jeff, real quick,
usual.
without a gate, how will you prevent the residents of the community from utilizing that street and going onto the residential road, the access road?
Well, there'll really be
onto-
no reason for them to come out there, but when we did meet with some of the neighbors there, they did express a desire to be able to walk through our development, and as we explain the development, we'll see why they should be attracted to that. But the fire department and police department, we had talked about crash gates, we had talked about rumble strips, we talked about strobe lights, all different things, and they said they really would prefer it to be unencumbered. We might use a decorative pavement with an embossed paving. The one thing we really don't want is we don't want kids on skateboards finding their way down into the property and being there. The people who will live in such a place don't want certain interaction either, but if people are going to migrate back and forth, I don't think that's going to really be terribly objectionable.
Could put a lot more traffic on Skyview Road, though, couldn't it, conceivably? I mean, that's what Judy's asking about.
Oh, no, that's definitely not a desirable way to come out. In no way would that be a desirable outlet there. It's only,
It's quicker if you live in one of those units near Skyview. Wouldn't you get access more quickly than going through the community or not?
I mean, access to 121 effectively.
Yep.
well, it's certainly not designed with that in mind. It's only a 16-foot wide pavement, and we designed it the way the emergency personnel would like to see it.
Maybe some signage or something.
Sure, definitely. Now, the amendment to the regulations is intended to limit at the outset the amount of areas in town where the active adult development may be approved. Particularly, we have this parcel, as was commented on by Mr. Miller. There also is it's conceivable to assemble parcels on the west side of Route 121 and onto Route 34 that could also qualify. But the intent is that there are certain limitations. The access roads, the public utilities, the size of the parcels, to have a very limited place to do this, limited amount of units, limited density, and if this proves to be what we expect it to be, the town would have the option of amending this regulation if they chose to put it in other areas of town that had access to a state road, that had public sewer, public water, and had large enough acreage. Now, also, what we've done within the development requirements is, as was mentioned, the age restriction, comparable to other age restrictions that are found throughout the state, the strict design standards that would be implemented, limiting the number of units in any particular building,
Jeff,
as well as on the
I'm
property.
sorry to stop you, because I know you're in a flow. Bo had brought something up before regarding divorce. I'm not going in that direction, but what happens when there is a child in this, that is born while they're in the unit?
After the cigars are passed out. What usually happens on one of these, the emergency provision is... No, the emergency provision is...
They take them out the back
They'll be there
road.
temporarily.
If, heaven forbid, there should be something that happens to the to the children of the occupants where they wind up having to care for grandchildren, that is what's envisioned in these type of things. It can be made where it's a temporary measure, or it can be made where they're there for a few years, but it's not, if it was up to me, if it's a divorce, they're out of there. And frankly, if they have a child, they're not going to want to live there because it's really not designed as a place where you're going to want to raise young children.
I'm not disputing that, but there are a number of couples, especially blended families, I see them every day, with one spouse older than the other, and, they're having kids in the late 30s and early 40s, and that's just the way it is, and I'm just curious as to how the association was going to handle it.
Well, again, we could legislate it strictly, we could legislate it loosely, but the whole intent and the way these units are designed is that it's not a bad place for the kid to come home from college for the summer, but he sure doesn't want to stay there with all these people, older people.
But right now, I guess what I'm getting to is that you're, under the emergency order is how it'd be handled.
It would have to be handled in the emergency order, but we can more narrowly define what constitutes an emergency, and we can codify that. In our mind, and when we had looked at it, we have a caregiver. If you have if you have a home health aide living there, they would qualify, and say one of the spouses die and that person could stay there. Those are usually the areas, if you look at many of the other regulations, and we've looked at a lot of them, that's what's intended to be. if there's a happy occasion, I would assume they should be looking to move out within
9
a
months to
year.
find a new home. They have
sorry?
9 months to find a new home.
Well, it certainly doesn't come overnight, as you say. Okay,
It is a
again,
legitimate concern, though, as Paul pointed
Sure.
out. It's not an uncommon fact here now.
and again, that can be handled in the regulation as to what constitutes an emergency. Okay, we have the strict design standards, again, the number of units in a particular building, height, FAR, building coverage. We have significant landscaping buffers required. We see these along areas where there are adjoining lots. We have greater setbacks over areas where we have existing homes. We have a larger setback because the people who buy into this subdivision here, basically, they know what they're getting next door. Over here, we have I believe, a 75-foot setback, 35-foot planted buffer, and that would be a permanent buffer as well. Now, the parking design is also, it's kind of liberal. We require 2 spaces per dwelling. In our particular application, everybody has a 2-car garage. Many of them have driveway spaces in front of those 2-car garages. What's also provided is the street width allows for parking on one side of the street. The other side will be marked as a fire lane. That is where the visitors would be. This is a very different kind of housing plan. As we see in the site plan, we've developed a wide variety of housing types. What we've done is have some fairly luxurious duplex units. Now, the term duplex really, in this case, is an attached dwelling because they're side by side, not one above the other. A stack unit, as Mr. Miller rightly points out, would not be permitted in this development. They have to be attached homes. They have to join side by side. The whole premise of that is there's first floor living, master bedroom suites on the first floor of every unit. If I had a second floor unit, I would kind of run contrary to that. But we have these luxurious ones along the southern perimeter, and the reason for that is the massing and the size of these units are comparable to the larger single-family homes on Skyview Road that abut it, even though the grade elevation is kind of significant, but the size, type, and development, we're trying to create apples with apples. We have single-family homes that are larger homes as outlined here. We have attached triplexes along the lower perimeter here. Even a few of them have walkout basements. And the meat of the development comes in the center where we have what we might describe as a mews home. Basically, a mews was an old alleyway, and you'd have your service corridor there. The garage is all back onto that. They have 2-car garages. Their trash would be handled outside the garage. They're one-way with 16-foot width, but they widen out in various locations to 18 feet, so vehicles could pass. If a garbage truck is picking up garbage and you want to get by them, you would be able to do that. But the whole premise of that allows these main roads that we have, the more significant main roads, to have no driveways, no garages facing them. You walk down the streetscape and you see something, mid-America back in the 30s and 40s, the nice architecture, picket fences, street trees, fancy street lights, street signage, where we get a rhythm where it's a very walkable community, where you're not worrying about a car backing out of a driveway, and you're not having that roller coaster of handicapped sidewalks up and down all the way, but we have something that has some nice continuity. Again, the emphasis is less on the car. It also encourages more neighborhood interaction by having that kind of streetscape. So that is the core of the development. These would be tree-lined streets, decorative street lighting. Again, I mentioned the garbage pickup confined to the service areas. And the main streets would also be the area where you'd have general circulation, but visitor parking would occur there. Also, in our meeting with the police and fire departments, our decorative street signs would have some unique features to them. I'll be handing out something to you shortly with lighting and signage. But not only do the street signs, decorative street signs, but above them, we would have the street numbers of the homes on that street. To quote a member from the police commission, It's always easy for us to find the houses that are on fire, but where somebody might be having a medical emergency, that's a little bit more difficult. So having numbers on the street signs, and then they also required us to have lit house numbers. That way, when they're coming down there, we have a little backlit box with the street number wired in like you would have your smoke detector and maybe a photo cell. In the evening, they could always be able to read the street numbers going down there. And for something of an age-restricted community, we thought that that was an excellent suggestion.
Jeff, how wide are those other interior roads?
The interior roads here are all 26 feet wide. We have a couple of areas that I'll highlight. As you come in, we have an esplanade entrance, two 16-foot wide roads with a 6-foot wide planted island through the center. We have a nice stone wall with a metal fence on top of that to give the impression of a gated community without being a gated community. Then as we come into the entrance here, we have an island that serves a number of ways. It's traffic calming, but also it's an area where we're going to have a mailbox kiosk for all the units. We have 20-foot drive on either side of it, each way, so there's enough width where someone could park their car next to the mailbox, get out, get their mail, and plenty of room for a car to pass it. So that takes place right here at the entrance. We have decorative pavers along the esplanade. We have decorative pavers along the island here. And then we have another traffic calming island with a 20-foot around there, and that again to keep the traffic speeds down. Again, all the major living areas provided on the main floor with expansion into second floor areas. In some cases, as I mentioned, we have some walkout basements. The community facility that we have, we're providing a large structure, kind of reminiscent of Orange's history. We'll see that in the architecture. We would have a main level meeting room, lower level exercise area, lockers, a swimming pool, tennis courts, and then we have a community parking area, 38 regular parking spaces, 3 handicap accessible parking spaces. So what would happen is if someone's going to have their large Super Bowl party, rather than having input on the whole neighborhood, if they're going to have a large gathering, they're able to meet here. If you want to have a baby shower for when the grandchild is born, the community building is near the entrance, so we don't have to traipse through the whole development here. Now, we have approximately 14 of the 38.6 acres that comprise passive landscaped open space as well as the active community open space. And the landscape plan if you had the sheet SP5, this is a 100 scale drawing, but it's a very extensive landscaping plan, extensive mixture of hardwoods, evergreens, deciduous and evergreen shrubs along the property line buffer on both the south and eastern buffers. We also have a heavy planted buffer down along Derby Avenue with a slight berm along that way as well. Also, we have individual planting plans for each of the units, typical planting plans there. It's very extensive, and we're going to really revegetate the area. And out on the corner, where we, again, imitate the entrance wall with a fieldstone wall and signage, and some landscaping out there in the corner framing the pond as well. Now, what I have to hand out to you shows typical lights. What we've called out here are for decorative light fixtures. We're looking at the acorn-type fixtures, and I also have the signage, and I also have the S&E plan that I'm going to get to next. Now, we're calling out for one particular brand name of light fixtures or equivalent. There are many different acorn light fixtures on the market, and we won't want to lock ourselves into one particular brand based on what's available. But there are many to choose from there. And what we've done in our lighting is we have the street lights, they're taller fixtures along the main road, but then we have, on the alleyways, we have shorter fixtures that are much more subdued. They're about 8-foot high poles, and we have the 12-foot high poles during the roadways, and then in the parking lot, I actually have normal commercial size light poles there as well. After meeting with the Wetlands Commission, one of the things that we discussed, and also from Mr. Miller's letter, is the need for a phasing plan. This ties in quite significantly with the S&E measures. And we recognize the rolling topography of the site as well as the seasonal high water table. Significant cuts and fills are going to be required for the development of the property. And due to the nature of the development, the added infrastructure, by doing this method that we have with the rear garages to try to create that walkable community, we actually have more driveways than you would normally have if you had a conventional development with the garages facing every which way. I mean, we do have a few of those over here. We've minimized them wherever we can, but in order to create the streetscapes that we're looking to do, we actually have these alleyways that we have to incorporate there. So we have additional infrastructure, larger stormwater basin, the community facilities, the desire to keep the wider buffers require us to now create a series of plateaus in development of the site, and movement of earth requires careful phasing, as we could well imagine. The use of sediment basins in various locations. We're looking at a major cut taking place on this side of the site and a major fill on this area of the site. We can show different stockpiles of topsoil around there, but you're basically going to be moving earth from up here, and you're going to be bringing it down over here to achieve that series of plateaus. We're going to be needing a series of sediment basins. A portion of the large detention basin will operate as a sediment basin, but there'll be temporary sediment basins that'll have to be constructed during the phasing, and they'll have to be moved. When one area is done, that will be filled up, and you'll move to other areas. It is a 38-acre site, and as part of that, we're going to be looking at these phases as is outlined here. I've outlined something here that is always going to be a work in progress because site conditions sometimes dictate a little difference. If you try, we have our desire, I'll look this way, is better. We're going to try to have a temporary site access through here and use that as a construction entrance. We'll be also doing some over here, but as you develop these areas and try to build model homes, it's difficult to be bringing the public through the area where the concrete trucks are coming and the materials are being delivered. So that's one reason why temporarily we'll come through here. We'll take that little elbow out because that little elbow is only going to be at the end. That little access over here is an emergency access to service basically this building. It cannot handle a fire truck, but it can handle EMTs and medical emergencies. It's good to have emergency access near an area where there's athletic activities taking place in an age-restricted development. It's what you want to have. But we realize that the fire apparatus is going to access here or here. Medical cannot access there as well. But again, we've addressed some of the phasing as we envision it at this time, trying to walk you through different areas, how we would extend roads, bring the utilities in at various phases, when we would anticipate constructing the community building, and the like. We really want to get this area stabilized as early as possible because that is where the greatest potential for erosion is. That's where our neighbors are. So the faster we can get that area stabilized and planted, the better everybody is going to be and happier that everybody's going to be. Now, if you've seen the light fixtures, you've seen on there, they have the sign details on the other side of the page from that, and you have something to look at as far as the phasing is concerned. Also, I mentioned on the outset, we also talk about temporary earthwork application. Now, previously, this was a subdivision, and after listening to you have a time there with that earlier applicant, person had a free cut, If it was a subdivision, they would be exempt from your temporary earthworks application because it's a free cut, not a subdivision, they have to come in. Well, we were looking at this, if this was a re-subdivision, does that make us exempt from it? If this was Lot 8 of the 7-lot subdivision, but we're configuring this as other land of, and after some conversations with our council, with the town council, we felt it was just better to give you the formwork, make the application for a temporary special permit. There is a lot of earth that's going to be moved in and on the site, and as we continue to engineer some of these areas, there might be some minor variations in house elevations, depending upon the depth of topsoil, suitability of on-site material, what we can use for road base, pipe bedding material, what can be used as common fill. That's going to drive the final number of how much material will actually leave the site. So again, that's going to be something that we're going to have to follow through. During construction, you're going to really see that. If you can use much of the material on site, you'll use as much of it as you can on site.
Jeff, is it the applicant's intention at this point in time to have the association comprised of anything other than the 140 lots, 140 residences on the plan?
The only thing that I had mentioned in our meeting with the neighbors, when they said they would like to be able to walk through the community, we did toss it out there that if there was a venue where they might be able to buy into the association to utilize, because they, asked about the tennis courts, if there's a venue where they can buy into that and join it, I don't think there'd be any real opposition to doing that. I mean, we want to be good neighbors, and we have some, it's going to be a walkable community, and I know that my wife used to lament when we lived in New Haven, she could take the baby in a carriage and walk around, but when you move to Orange, we don't have sidewalks, but here we're going to have sidewalks.
None of the other 7 lots are going to be members of the association?
It's not intended for that to be the case. It's, again, that's Sunrise Hill Estates, this is Fieldstone Village. That was another reason for the name change, is to get a bit of a identity separation there. So, I have nothing more to say. I can answer questions or take a break with all of you.
Why don't we take a 5-minute recess at this time, or a few-minute recess, and stretch our legs and come back for the rest of it. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Sure.
Applicant is going to alter his presentation to allow some time for the public to comment on what has been issued, what has been talked about so far tonight, later on this evening, so that you're not out here for nothing. If you wish to comment on what has been presented or any other comments, we will put aside some time for the public to comment on this application. And of course, you're welcome to come back at any time for the proceedings. We better wait for Tammy for that. You want it? Rick, pass me that. Oh, thanks. At this time, we'd like to proceed with the application presentation.
Okay, if there are no pressing questions that can't be carried over till the next meeting, I would probably ask that we have Mr. Weiwei come up and briefly discuss the drainage so we can leave some time for the public.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name's Robert Weiwei. I'm a licensed professional engineer and principal with the firm of Codispoti, and part of the design team for the Fieldstone Village project that's before you tonight. What I'd like to do is just briefly go over the stormwater management plan that's being developed in conjunction with the project. Primarily, we have a low point in the site, which is located up in the northwest corner of the 38-acre site area. The topography is such that it generally slopes from the southerly direction in a northwesterly direction up towards this low point, which ultimately discharges to the wetlands in this general location and flows northerly underneath Route 34 onto the Hine property and then into a larger wetland system. On this larger size drawing, what we've done is we've outlined the approximate detention basin that was approved as part of the Sunrise Hill subdivision. And that detention basin was originally sized to accommodate a 30-lot development, although at the time of application, only 22 lots were approved. In the development of Fieldstone Village, there's obviously a much larger percentage of impervious surface coverages with the roadways and building units. All told, there's approximately 8,000 lineal feet of road and driveways associated with the project, in addition to the 142 building units that are being proposed. Now, we did perform an analysis of the impacts that may occur as part of this development, and the findings are basically summarized in the drainage report prepared for the project. We've got a number of design elements that have been incorporated to minimize the impacts from the increases in runoff, as well as the provisions for water quality enhancements going throughout the site area. All told, we're affecting a zero increase in runoff through the expansion of the existing detention basin. And what you can see on this particular drawing is that the darker shade of green is what we're proposing to expand that detention basin out to. All told, the storage capacity of the basin will almost double in size from approximately 5 acre-feet of storage to roughly 9.5 acre-feet. The outlet control structure, which is located pretty much in the northerly end of the detention basin, will be reconfigured from the original Sunrise Hill design to accommodate the additional storage and flow restrictions going through the outlet control structure. One of the other items that we took a look at in conjunction with looking at the STC application, which will be required as part of this application, and looking at the concerns that DOT will have with impacts with regards to the roadway drainage on Route 121 and Route 34, is that we try to take a substantial amount of the watershed area that normally would have sheet flowed up to Route 34, up in this general area here, which would be the northeasterly corner of the site. And what we've done is we've created, in essence, two drainage swale systems that ring the perimeter of the site, both along the southerly and easterly and then northerly sides of the site again, too. So in this configuration, instead of the drainage from these areas sheet flowing up towards Derby Avenue, hitting the pavement, and then going into the state drainage system, what we're going to be doing is intercepting it through this system right here, which is kind of highlighted in a darker shade of green, with an above-ground drainage swale system, and there's also a below-ground storm drainage system too, with periodic spacing of catch basins located within the swale area to intercept the surface flow and then convey it down to the detention basin. So with these two systems here, and then again we have another system along the southerly end of the site to intercept the flow coming down off the cut slopes here, and then also coming off back into the Skyview Road subdivision. These will be intercepted via a catch basin system, then tied into an existing drainage system, which is off the pavement area. It presently runs through our site right now, and that ultimately runs down and ties into the detention basin in that area. So in part, the detention basin is going to take care of the increases in peak rates of runoff. And again, if you were to take a look at the drainage study, what you would see is that we're providing far above, beyond a zero increase in runoff. For the 2-year storm, we're basically providing in excess of a 50% reduction in the peak rates of runoff. As we get up to the 100-year, it's a little bit less, but it's quite a bit of reduction in the peak rates, and most of that is due to the extra volume that we'll have, that we'll be able to accommodate within the expanded detention basin. Now, in terms of water quality, we've already gone over the drainage swale system that's going to be going around. We're also providing, up in the northerly area, there's going to be some underground infiltration galleries that will be picking up some of the drainage from the roof areas along the triplex units, as well as this larger system, basically picking up some of the drainage from the swale system and an underground storm drain system up in that area. This was really the only area of the site that is conducive to, in my opinion, what would be conducive for infiltrating ground, or infiltrating the stormwater back into the ground. As we get up into other areas of the site, in part due to the amount of excavation that's going to take place up in here, and the groundwater conditions that are prevalent along this portion of the site and the upper portions of the site here, infiltration really isn't a preferred method for getting some groundwater recharge.
When you say
within those
groundwater
areas.
conditions in those areas, is there a high groundwater table in those areas?
Yeah, and I think if you remember from when we went through with the design for the Sunrise Hill Estates subdivision, originally when we came in, that was going to be a 30-lot subdivision. Due to concerns from the town sanitarian and some additional testing that we had to undertake with respect to the groundwater monitoring and in essence lowering of the water table in that area to support the additional 8 lots to bring that back up to 30, there would have had to been some remedial measures to deal with the groundwater. So again, in this situation, because we are going to be into a cut situation here, we are anticipating that there are going to be some groundwater issues to deal with up in that portion of the site area.
Okay.
So when we did the original testing, this area up in here was somewhat more favorable to putting the water back into the ground. The infiltration rates were good up in that area. And if you take a look at the contours up in that area, there's not a whole lot of grading activity that's going to take place in there. So those systems will in essence be put into virgin ground up there if you would. So the infiltration galleries will certainly help with groundwater recharge and the water quality enhancements that they provide. Now, for the interior roadway system, and what I'm going to refer to, it's basically everything that comes off of the 8,000 lineal feet of road and driveway. We've got a series of storm drainage systems in here. For the purpose of the analysis, that they've basically been broken up into 3 systems. What we have is the westerly system, which ties in along Route 121. That basically picks up the westerly portion of Sunrise Hill Circle and extends up to the high point in the road right about in this proximity here. So this whole system will flow down along this direction, come across the parking lot for the community building, tie into here and go out. The remainder of these, we've got the ring system here, the lower portion here, and then each of the Deerfield Lane and each of the ways that are up in that area all have drainage systems, which for the most part culminate down at the low point on Sunrise Hill Circle in this general vicinity here. So what we have is the main trunk line, which comes through here between the alleyway which connects Sunrise Hill Circle and Clover Way. And then there's also a secondary system which is picking up the lower portion of Sunrise Hill Circle both to the west and east. So all told, we're proposing to install 3 water quality structures that have been sized to accommodate the appropriate flow rates for each of those tributary drainage systems from those particular sections. So all told, we should be able to meet the requirements from DEP towards achieving a goal of 80% total suspended solids removal as part of the overall plan. And I think with that, I'd just like to keep the comments short, unless the commission has any questions. That's pretty much a summary of the stormwater management plan that's being proposed for the site area.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Weiwei? Are there any questions from the public for Mr. Weiwei? Not at this time. We'll certainly get back to you, though, I'm
Okay,
sure.
thank you.
At this time, I believe we want to open up some public participation, if anybody's interested in addressing the commission. Please come forward. Sorry.
My name is Patricia O'Leary Treat, 801 Grassy Hill Road. I've been a resident of Orange for about 20 years, and I've now reached the point where I can foresee scaling down from a large house to one that I can handle more easily. I'm very excited at the plan that we had a chance to see this evening, and hopeful that it will be able to become a reality.
Thank you. Would anybody else care to address the commission? Please come forward.
I'm Joy Habib. I live at 839 Robert Treat Extension, and I've lived in Orange for 40 years. I just would like you all to know that there are many people in town, my age, younger, some older, who are really looking forward to having a place to go. And I really see this as one of the only areas in Orange where we were able to accommodate with sewers and location and facilities. And I hope you all really consider the importance of making this decision and making it available to the town residents.
Thank you. Would anybody else care to address the commission? Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Ray Files. I live at 256 Peck Lane. And although I'm relatively new to Orange within the past 10 or 11 years, I also drive a van for senior services, so I get to take many of our constituents here and there around town. Our leadership team did a study originally on the need for housing in Orange, for which we have maybe 45 units at Red Cedar Circle, plus the condominiums. I live in an apartment house with 31 families. Outside of that, there really isn't any place to go. The concern of the people I take is that they love to stay in Orange. Many of them have been here maybe 50 years, 40 years, whatever, and their fear is that they have to go elsewhere, New Haven and communities surrounding here, when all their ties have been here for many, many years. So I do hope, this seems like a wonderful opportunity. There's been a lot of work and thought put into it. I do hope you give it your serious consideration.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else care to address the commission? There being none, would the applicant like to continue with this presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to have Mr. Spear. I'd like to have our traffic engineer talk to you for a little while about the trip counts, and then that may well wrap us up or bring us to our 10:30
Okay.
deadline, quote unquote.
Deadline is such a negative connotation. Maybe it should be a live line. Just for the record, my name is David Spear. I'm a principal engineer with DLS Consulting Traffic Engineering Services. My office is in Windsor, Connecticut. I'm a registered professional engineer in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York. Been practicing traffic engineering for about 23 years. My firm specializes in traffic engineering. That's our primary focus. We were asked to take a look at this application from a traffic point of view. We did look at it, the same site previously for the 30-lot subdivision, and so we had done some preliminary work on the site and also looked at some off-site improvements, which I'll mention as we get there. Just for the project background, some of this has already been discussed, but I'll just reiterate a few things. There's 142 units. They're age-restricted, 55 and over. Development also includes a community building with a pool and tennis courts. Emergency vehicle access, which was discussed earlier, is off of Skyview Road. And this project is defined as a major traffic generator by the DOT because of the square footage and the number of parking spaces exceeding 100,000 square feet and 200 parking spaces. And also because they do have direct frontage on state roads, it will require a certificate from the State Traffic Commission. The 30-lot subdivision fell just under the wire, so that didn't require an SDC certificate, but it did require an encroachment permit to get the curb cut onto Route 121. So
that application will be forthcoming. We haven't submitted it yet, but the state sort of likes to wait till the town approves it before they'll do any final approvals, but we'll be submitting that shortly. The prior subdivision application, we did develop improvements, which we're not going to present tonight, but basically the only improvement is right at the main driveway. There's a widening on Route 121 to allow bypass capabilities so that when you're turning left into the site, you're going to widen on this side of the road, there'll be an additional shoulder area so that a through traffic can drive around a left-turning vehicle.
And that was, what, 4 feet, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, the half section is 20 to 22 feet, but the widening itself,
widening
because
itself,
it is about 4 feet,
About
because
4
you've
feet
got,
more
you've
than
got,
one,
you've got a fair amount of pavement already. But the main reason for that is not necessarily the volumes, because this is a relatively low generator, but it's primarily due to the speeds being over 40 miles an hour. The DOT, normally when you get over 40, they like the bypass capability for safety reasons, just so that you have the opportunity to drive around somebody turning. So that's really the only off-site improvement that will be going forward, and that will be reviewed and approved by the DOT. It's in their state right-of-way, and we'll have to get an encroachment permit to do that. The background existing conditions at the site, from a traffic point of view, the site's located, as you know, on the corner of 121 and Route 34. The site drive, this drive location is 1,150 feet south of Route 34, and I know Brian had a comment on his comment list regarding the queuing back from Route 34. That distance, 1,150 feet, is long enough to store about 53 cars. So you'd have to stack over 53 cars before you get to our site drive. And it's a little bit hard to judge on this plan, but this plan is at a 50 scale. So typically people are looking at 20 scale plans, 40 scale plans. This is actually a fairly substantial distance. It's about a quarter of a mile from Route 34 down to the site drive, which under normal traffic operations, we wouldn't expect any queuing to get back here. Our field observations show queuing sometimes gets in about halfway back, and the only time you might get backing, any significant backing, is if there were an incident on I-95 or the Merritt Parkway, or for some reason the traffic patterns were shifted. But the day-to-day traffic, we don't expect any impact from those queues.
Excuse me, Dave? I'm going to flip it around. How about the queuing on Route 34 if you're heading toward Derby from New Haven, and the queuing at that intersection of 121 if you were making the left from 34 onto 121? How many cars are available for that?
Right here?
Yeah.
I have the signal plan. That I think it's about a 200 or 300 foot stacking lane for that left turn slot, and it can be extended if need be. But our traffic, and I haven't gotten into the trip generation, but our numbers are very small. When you distribute them over an hour, they won't significantly impact that queue. If the state required it, we could do something with the island and make that longer, but it's really, if there's anything to be done there, it's an existing condition. It's not due to our site traffic.
Can you discuss for just a couple of seconds, was Route 34 ever considered as going in and going as a means of egress, ingress, or is that something that was never really a viable option?
It's my understanding early on in the subdivision that it was, it was preferred by the DOT because you have a 4-lane road here to come in off the side street and come out through the signal. We wouldn't warrant a signal, but the other problem is there's a lot of grades. There's a grade difference through here, and it'd be very difficult to make the grades to come up from the subdivision, or from the development roads up to Route 34.
Meaning 34 is much lower in relative to the size of the, where the grading?
Yeah, the grade change and the distance you have to make the grade change is too short. Just for background, the
The width of 121 at our access point is 29 feet. There's a 12-foot lane in each direction and 2.5-foot shoulders. The speed limit is 40 miles an hour. The daily traffic on 121 is 8,800 cars a day. That's the 2006 ADT. We did traffic counts during the AM and PM peak hour, and we found that the AM peak was 596 trips. That splits 169 northbound and 427 southbound. The PM is higher. It's at 879 trips or vehicles, and that's 529 northbound and 350 southbound, and that's passing the site right at the proposed access. Just for comparison, Route 34 is a 4-lane road. There's left and right turning lanes in each direction, so you really have a 4-lane approach, east and west. It's a signalized intersection there, and the 2006 ConnDOT ADT was 34,500, and peak hours in the morning was 2,500 roughly, and the afternoon was 3,100. We looked at the accident history, and we basically looked within 500 feet of the site frontage of our proposed access, and in the latest 3-year history, which was January 2003 to December 2005, there was only one accident reported there, and that was actually involving a deer in the roadway, which is a moving object, and until you hit it. then it's, well, it still moves after you hit it, but then it stops soon after. But the other thing related to safety is the intersection sight distance. We did review the sight distance. You have excellent sight distance from the driveway location. You can see all the way up to the intersection, which again is it's actually 1,200 feet to the center of Route 34.
Dave, excuse me, is your intention that when people are coming out, that they'll be able to make a left, or meaning go north on 121 and south on 121, or will they be restricted one way or the other?
No,
Both
this is
directions.
full access. There's no restriction proposed.
Will there be 2 lanes going out or 1 lane?
Well, it's a boulevard type layout. I don't believe it's striped as 2 lanes, but I think we could make it 2 lanes. It will basically, it'll function if there were 2 cars at the same time. One would pull left, and there's enough width that they would function as 2 lanes, but it's not really. At this point, it's not striped as 2 lanes. We analyzed it as a single lane, and it would work even better at 2 lanes, but it works fine with 1 lane.
Excuse me, it's 20 feet wide, that each section of the half? 16.
I'm sorry. I want this for the record. You have to come up, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It's 16, so it's 16 feet on each of the lanes, and it
Jeff
kind
Gordon
of
for the record.
rolls out.
It's 16 feet, but then the island is pulled back, and then you have a very wide radius there, so you could effectively have a second lane to make a left turn. You could wind up where the island ends, you could come here and have a left turn segment for about 2 vehicles there, if you wanted to. It's like the end of a highway ramp. They're usually not striped as 2 lanes, but when you have traffic going both directions, they function as 2 lanes.
My concern was that there may be, 280 vehicles on this thing, and if you're trying to get out, just one vehicle trying to make a left turn out of the complex could hold up a number of vehicles trying to make a right turn out of the complex,
Okay.
which may take quite a less amount of time.
All right, well, we'll get to that. It's fine. So basically, the sight distance is good. There's no accidents to speak of, and the geometry is good, and we're going to improve it a little bit. The proposed conditions section of our report basically discusses the trip generation, the projected traffic volumes, and the capacity analysis of this intersection. And the trip generation, we used.
Before we get to trip generation, I have a couple of comments on the conditions. I see you use a generous 2.5% growth, which is usually more than we see in these. It's usually 2%, I believe. And I see that you didn't use the ITE data. You used a similar facility study and that ended up being 55% higher than the ITE data. In this similar facility study, do you know what the minimum age allowed of residents was? I know the maximum, I'm sorry, the maximum age. In other words, this is proposed to have nobody under the age of 18. I know that similar facility studies had 55 and older, but do you know what the minimum allowed age was?
These were age-restricted, these are age-restricted developments, they're still here in Connecticut.
Right.
That were restricted to 55 and over. We didn't research the actual documents as to whether they have a minimum age or what it is, but I do know that the standard perception and the way every other town approves these things, when they come in with 55 and over, they narrowly focus what's allowed in there, and I know there are some exceptions that are allowed and some flexibility, but the general population was 55 and over, age restricted. And it's one owner, it wasn't both owners, it's just like this, it was one 55 and over.
Additionally, the last sentence of the first paragraph says the Orange Planning Department was contacted to determine if there were any recently approved and not yet built projects that would generate significant amount of traffic in the study area prior to completion of this project. No projects were identified. Did you look at the traffic that's going to be generated by the already approved Stu Leonard's project and consider that to see if that would be significant at this site?
We checked with the planning department, and they did not recommend that we include any additional traffic for Stu Leonard's. Now, I'm not sure when, is that up and running now? Because these counts were...
It is an approved project at this point.
I know it's approved.
It's in litigation, but it's approved, so.
This is really, I did actually do some review of the Stu Leonard's project, and the component of the Stu Leonard's traffic coming by this area is very small. It's 5 or 10%, because most of it's oriented off of 95. And this is really not along the travel routes. Even if you go to the Merritt Parkway, there's a more direct route than Route 121.
Okay, thank you.
My recollection was that the percentage...
Well, it was 50-50 coming off of 95 and the rest coming in from other roads.
Well, I think it was, I don't know what I wish I remembered what the numbers were that were generated, not the percentages, but it was a small percentage. I think it was like 3 or 4% from 121, and a little bit more than that from Orange Center, a little bit more than that from 121.
Racebrook.
Just as a point, I know there's been redevelopments approved for the shopping centers on the Derby side on Route 34. They might actually have a greater impact on traffic in this area.
That's a good point. Lowe's has been approved, if I understand it correctly, for Kmart.
And that might be addressed in the concern you had on queuing on 34. So maybe you could take a look at those two projects and see if any available data can be brought forward.
So it's the Derby Lowe's?
Yes.
And there was another one?
Well, the other one was to look into the Stu Leonard's traffic volumes, and that data is available right in Town Hall.
Right. I actually have a copy of it.
Did that go forward yet?
Pardon me?
The one in back of Heinz property?
No, that's still in the...
That's still in the works?
Yeah.
But I would just point out that the town staff didn't feel that those were impacting this area for our background. And if we put those in, all that does is increase our background numbers a little bit. It doesn't change our site traffic. And the actual site traffic is still going to be small, and if we add a little more background, it'll be a smaller part of the total traffic. What we did was we started looking at ITE, which has some senior housing in it, but they don't have exactly the same demographics as proposed here. So what we've done and what we've used on several of these age-restricted projects is we've done a similar facilities count at several locations in Connecticut, and that's recommended by ITE when their data is limited, that you get additional local data. And what the results of that study showed was that basically the ITE numbers were very similar to the local Connecticut data in the morning peak hour, and then in the afternoon our data showed significantly more traffic than the ITE numbers. So when you compare our data to the ITE, we're a little bit, we come up with a higher estimate of traffic. It's a little more conservative. Based on those studies, we estimate 31 trips in the morning. That's 5 entering and 26 exiting. and in the afternoon, 57 trips, 36 entering, 21 exiting. And that's based on 142 units. One thing that you have to understand about this type of development is a significant number of these folks, although the age restriction is 55 and under, there are people who come in that are older than 55, but a fair amount of them either are not working or can choose to work on their terms, where they don't have to fight the rat race and fight the rush hour traffic. And what the studies show is that the majority of their traffic is really during the off-peak of the roadway. It's between 10 and 2, and during the peak hours, they generate less traffic compared to a regular subdivision. And just as a note, the 30-lot subdivision, using the ITE rates for single-family detached housing, results in 30 trips in the morning, which is almost identical to the trip generation from this development in the morning. In the afternoon, the 30 lots results in 36 trips, which is a little bit less than what we would have. We're projecting 57 trips, but when you look at the entering and exiting split, it's not much different. You go from 23 trips to 36. You're adding about 13, and in the exiting direction, you're going from 13 to 21.
Dave, did I hear you say that the flow coming out of this project would be fairly much the same as if they approved the 38 homes that could be on this lot?
Well, that's the peak hour flow.
The peak hour flow. The off-peak would be a little bit different because you're going to have traffic during the off-peak. In a typical residential subdivision, you have more peak hour traffic, but between the peaks, you have less traffic. So it's kind of a wash. But the advantage of that is this is a complementary traffic flow to the commuter traffic pattern which you have passing the site, so that you've got your sharp peaks during the rush hours, and the background numbers are significantly less during the off-peak, where you still have traffic here. But for analysis purposes, we still analyze the peak hour because the total volumes are still much higher during the peak. And the off-peak will only work better than what the peak shows. So the last step we did was we added our site traffic to the background traffic. We split it based on the existing travel pattern and based on location of facilities relative to the site location. And that split came out to 35% oriented to the north and 65% south of the site. And then it was assigned exiting the site. We then did the analysis of the proposed intersection, and basically the left turn into the site operates at a level of service A with during the morning and the afternoon peak hours, with all the site traffic and the background traffic. The exiting traffic operates at level of service B in the morning, because the volumes, if you recall, the background volumes are a couple hundred vehicles higher in the afternoon. And then in the afternoon, the exiting traffic operates at level service C. All those levels are actually very good for Connecticut, for developed areas in Connecticut. The levels of service run from A to F, A being the best with little or no delays, F being the worst. C is an average, considered an average delay, and most locations, when you have an unsignalized intersection on a state road, it's difficult to find locations where you come in with the C level of service there. So the impacts are very small, and the numbers that actually go up to the Route 121 Derby Road intersection are, during the peak hours, we're talking about 15 or 20 vehicles. It's a handful, and when you compare that to the existing traffic, it's a negligible amount of traffic. The existing background and the variation from hour to hour and day to day is much more than our site traffic. We're such a small component because our traffic is basically oriented away from the intersection, plus we're sort of an off-peak generator. So overall, our conclusions after, and I guess we already talked about improvements and got ahead of that. The conclusions were, just to reiterate the highlights of the traffic, there's no accidents to speak of, and the intersection site distance is very good. We're proposing to improve the geometry by providing bypass capability. which will mainly be a safety feature. It's not really required for capacity. The level of service shows that because we're a small generator, the level of service shows we're C or better at the study intersection, and we believe the separation from Route 34 at 1,200 feet will, basically, those intersections will function independently. You won't have an impact from Route 34 on our intersection because we don't want to have traffic queuing by our driveway, and vice versa, our traffic won't impact that intersection. So that's the conclusion of the traffic, and if you have any questions, we can answer those.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Spear? Does anybody from the public have any questions for Mr. Spear? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, after presenting you with the intensely interesting studies of traffic and trip flows, we would like to get to our architect. Now, I understand the hour is getting a little bit late. I think we're going to need maybe another 10 to 15 minutes, but we do have some impressive stuff for you guys. We would very much like to show it to you, but at your leisure. You tell us what you would like to do and we'll do it.
What's the commission's feeling? It's a 10 or 15 minute presentation, or is it going to take longer?
Depends on the questions that come up.
You know, I think that the architecture is going to be a fairly important part of this project. You know, due to the densities involved, I think there might take some, a bit more study.
Okay.
So I'd prefer to take that up at the next meeting. We have some time to go over it. And that gives us also time. We do have the renderings that were handed out at the beginning of the meeting to all the members of the board, and we haven't had a chance to look at those yet, and that might better prepare us for your presentation.
Okay. Okay, would you like us to show you, we do have some colored boards. Would you like to see them before you go so you can get some idea of what we're proposing, or do you just want to call it a night?
I think we'll call it a night, and we'll look at the renderings that we have that were issued to us, and that we will know what we're looking at when we looked at the color presentations next time.
Okay, sounds great.
I'd like to supplement what you received with.
Please.
For the record, I'm Joe Bergen, architect. I'll just hand them to you and you can distribute them.
Thank you. For everybody.
Oh, no, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your hospitality. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to adjourn the meeting, and we'll continue this public hearing at our next meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned at 10:34.